Newshub Nation had Christopher Luxon in the weekend. It did, as you would expect, it did not go that well. However, I am now firmly of the opinion that it doesn't really matter if it doesn't go that well. They're not seeing a decrease in the polls. I actually almost wish they'd just come out and say, we got the numbers wrong. I don't think it would hurt them. I really don't think it would hurt them in the polls, rather than the silly game they're playing. So let's have a look at a little bit of, I've got quite a few clips. I might drop one or two of them, but some of them are very, very short. A couple of meaty ones to start off with. And there's a great line in here talking about the 32-page document, which I actually have sitting right here. And it gets referred to by the host as marketing, not modelling. Beautiful line, would look great on a T-shirt. Here we go. Listen, I also like the sigh right at the start. That's one of my favourite bits, so I've left it in.
You will be able to fund it completely. And if you can't...
They shouldn't go there. It should start here. Here we go.
Okay, we're going to talk a lot now about tax.
Oh, great.
So you talked a lot about tax this week. But it's been an up and down week for you. Your poll numbers have been really good. But you've also struggled to stack up your tax plan. There have been big questions from a lot of places about your foreign buyer tax. So are there any conditions that would make you rethink your tax cut policy?
No, absolutely not. By virtue of the way that we said we would...
So even that, look, I'm not going to get too much into this because it will take us too long, but are there any conditions you would question it? No. I mean... The reason that it frustrates me about all politicians is we've just been through a 3-year cycle where we had a pandemic where the conditions changed so much that everything had to change. For a politician to go, there is no chance ever that I'm ever going to change my mind on this. It's actually, I can, and this is, they all do it, right? So this is not about Mr. Luxon. They all do it. I actually kind of find it dishonest because, of course, if something happened, you would have to reassess it. It's okay to say, you know, this is our plan moving forward. We've seen the books, we can do it. If there was a national pandemic or a global pandemic and World War III or something, things might have to change, but that's certainly, unless it's a quote unquote act of God, Luxon did not say that, it'll be interpreted, but you know, like an act of God might change it, but other than that, this is the plan moving forward. Just be honest, you know, because if you're not and something does change, then this clip's going to get brought up time and time and time again. You said it wasn't going to change and it has. So just be real and be honest.
Because he's bad at this,
a long time ago. We said always that we would make sure we have a fully self-funded tax plan. And I just put it into a little bit of perspective.
Well, we can put it into context in a second, but it feels like you're entrenched here in this position. You are out there dying every day in a ditch over this tax plan when there are questions over the legitimacy of the foreign buyer tax. Why won't you just release the numbers and show people the money?
Well, we've released 32 pages of our approach and our costings. We've released a legal report summarising with the legal review, and we've also released Castalia's independent economic review of our numbers. So what I'd just say to you is, the foreign buyer tax is a piece of actually how we fund our tax relief. We've done this on a very conservative, very prudent basis on all aspects of it, and importantly, we're delivering tax relief to working New Zealanders. That's what they care about.
This is the 32-page document that you're talking about, isn't it? This, Christopher, this is a brochure. It's full of pictures of you.
I think that's unfair. There's quite a lot of tables in the back there, Rebecca.
Well, there's also some pictures of you having a cup of tea. There's pictures of you cuddling a baby. This is not a financial document, a big financial disclosure document. This is a brochure.
No, that's a policy document that lays out in detail in appendices actually some of our costings and how we're approaching it. We've been very transparent about it. And we actually, I think I'm very proud of that because...
It's marketing, it's not modelling. This is marketing.
Great line.
It's called a policy document. That's what we do in politics. We prepare policy so that actually...
I do like it as well. That's what we do in politics from someone who's never been in politics. Like, I mean, I'm not jabbing too much, but if someone like Hipkins said that, you'd kind of go, well, you've been around, you know what they do. But this guy's been here 3 minutes. This is what we do in politics. Is it? Are you sure? You know, it's like going into a new job. This is how we do things at Air New Zealand after you've been there 5 minutes. Are you sure? Do you know? Completely clear on that? I don't know.
Do you want to know another
jump
thing?
online?
Say again.
Do you want to know another thing about the 32-page document?
Please.
It's actually 29.
Well, I can look at that because I've got it here, which we'll look at afterwards. Let's keep going.
Yeah, and see how well they're going to do.
But you're saying that this is, you've put a 32-page report which goes through all of the financial details. You could not present this in any other environment except for politics and have people take you seriously. You couldn't list on the NZX with this. They wouldn't allow you.
I just put it to you. I think it's a very comprehensive policy document.
But it's not a financial document.
No, but I would challenge you to actually say the same thing if you want want to investigate how the government's proposing to take GST off fruit and vegetables.
What about you're here talking about your policies, Mr. Luxon? What about
fuel tax and excise tax?
Let's take a look here at your own example with the foreign buyer tax. This is Rachel. She is a tech entrepreneur. She is from San Francisco. She's successfully applied for an entrepreneur work visa so she can start a business in New Zealand. She wants to buy a $3 million apartment in Auckland to live in, but she's not a resident, so she can't buy a home. Under your plan, you say that she will pay 15% of foreign buyer tax and she'll be able to buy an apartment. How many Rachels do you need to make your foreign buyer tax work?
Well, let's go through it, right? So,
how many Rachels do you need?
So let me step you through it. So before the foreign buyer ban was in place, there was 4,000 houses that were sold to foreigners in New Zealand. What we're saying is we think it will be less than half, about 1,700 houses is what our plan's about. What we're saying is, look, we actually want some...
I like it how, because I did the numbers, remember? I like it how we go 16 to 1,700 at 1,725. That's how many houses at $2.9 million, 1725.
Someone like her to actually come to New Zealand and actually invest in New Zealand, partner with New Zealand firms, help them get better, help them to expand and grow.
So how many Rachels do you need?
Well, as we said, we've planned on selling 16 to 1,700 houses in our assumptions.
So you need 16 to 1,700 Rachels.
Yeah.
So how many Rachels entered the country under that visa this year?
Again, what I'd say to you
I can tell you. It's 12.
Well, what I'd say to you is there's other visas and other opportunities for foreigners to come to New Zealand.
But this is what you're putting in your document that you're selling to New Zealanders.
Yes, but what...
There you go. There's part one, Chewy. It was 12.
But hang on, Pat. Isn't this the anchor policy that's going to self-fund their tax cuts?
Well, but look, let's have a look. This is the document, right? And you said it was 29 pages.
Pulling that out of their ass.
I'm gonna just check the 29 page thing. Let's go to the end. I wonder if that doesn't include the covers. 28. Yeah, look, 28. There's absolutely 29. The other thing about all their documents and all their stats and all their figures, when it talks about this costing, right? This is all the information where they say we've got it. Well, this is it. So of the 29 page document, they have 2 paragraphs as to how they're going to cost this policy. Nothing else in it.
Wow.
It talks about what it is, like there's a foreign buyers tax. It talks about this. It talks about all the foreign buyers tax, gives the example that Rebecca just mentioned. And then when it says, how are you going to do this? It's 2 paragraphs. So the costings in their document, which it keeps talking about as 32 pages when it's only 29, the costings are actually 2 paragraphs of that. So what would that be? About 10 lines, 10 words a line. So 30, say 60 words. So of the 29 page document, 60-ish words actually explain their costings for the foreign buyers tax, Chewy.
This is the thing.
But it's the vibe,
because it's I laugh because it's fucking stupid, right?
Yeah.
But then, and this is for the national cheerleader in the chat at the moment, right?
Oh, we've got one. Yeah.
You should be angry about this too, my dude. As much as you might dislike Labour and go, yay, Team Blue, your team is phoning it in.
Yeah. If
this is the level of prep that they're bringing into convincing people to vote for them, and it's so tissue thin that it's a 29-page, 32-page document with 2 paragraphs explaining that this isn't going to work.
Yeah. That
every economist every tax expert bar one is saying that this will not work. That there is a barrage of media who are doing their job to make sure that the electorate gets the answers they need to decide this is the team that is going to be best for the country, and all they're getting back is, no, we don't need to show you shit, we're solid. Then you should be angry because that's the disrespect that's being shown to you. They know you're going to vote for them no matter what.
Yeah,
they don't have to show you shit. It's not for you. You should be just as angry as the rest of us because we, all of us, everyone in this country deserves better from our leaders. And you're going to say, hey, look, we're Labour shills. I'm saying that to Labour as well. Because they're phoning it in just as fucking much.
We've already done that twice in today's show. We've already done that twice in today's show. Look, let me also say this. I welcome people from the other side. In fact, I'd love to have more people from the other side watching this. Just show us where we're wrong. Show Rachel where she's wrong. Show our analysis of that interview as to where it's wrong. So we've done the numbers. 1725 at $2.9 million gets them the $5 billion they need. Not 16 to 1700, 1725. If they average $2.9 million, if they average $2 million, it's a fuck ton more. However, we're going to get to more about that as we go through. But you go, what was that, Troy?
Just the one thing. Remember that $2.9 million number had to be pulled out of Nicola Willis.
Yeah.
Because remember, it was around $2 million. No, it's around $3 million because it's 2.9 million. That's closer.
Yeah.
So, they do not want to tell us this because the details, everything falls apart.
Well, you talk about numbers basically there, Chewy. So let's go back to the interview and have our interviewer talk to Mr. Luxon about his numbers.
A little bit more here. You've based them on numbers back in 2018, sales in 2018 of 4,000 homes, but you don't know how many of those were over $2 million, how many of those sales were over $2 million, do you?
Well, clearly the market has moved since 2018 because unfortunately in this government they've failed so badly on housing. House prices are up over
The other thing, supporters of Luxon, if your response every time to a question is, but what about Labour? Then you have nothing. We see that on Twitter quite a lot. But Labour, so actually, this is Christopher Luxon's interview to explain to people like me, who haven't decided where we're going to vote yet, although most of you will guess what side of politics I will. But people like me and further to the right than me, who they're going to vote for. And if you've got this flagship policy that you think will get your votes and your best defence of your policy is, but what about Labour? Then that says quite a bit about how terrible this policy is. So that's what he's going to go into now. But Rebecca does well and presses him on his numbers.
You don't know
$230,000, right?
You don't know how many were over $2 million.
No, but what I can say to you is 4,000 houses sold to foreigners.
Yes.
We've been very conservative, taking less than half of them into our assumption, into our model. We're also acknowledging there's a huge amount of pent-up demand by virtue of the bright line test having been there and also the ban being in place.
You need 40% of those 4,000 buyers, excluding Australians and Singaporeans, to buy houses over $2 million.
Just remember, excluding Australians, Singaporeans, and probably Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Canadian, American, Mexican, British, UK as well. Probably excluding all of those places as well.
According selling to houses to the Saudis.
Yep.
And the Russian.
And there's 100,000 homes here in New Zealand.
No, there was 4,000 sold.
No, but that's to all foreigners before the ban.
Yes.
And just remember today,
and we don't know
house
how many
prices have moved on. Separately, we also now have 100,000 homes worth over $2 million in New Zealand. And we've had a ban in place. We've actually had a bright line test in place. Those things have been impediments to demand. And so I'm very confident that we will be able to raise 740.
And this is the other thing, from wherever you land on the political spectrum. Someone telling you, I know this is going to work, I'm very confident, without showing you their workings should raise questions. Like, I don't want to have to trust anyone. I want to see. Like, I want to read your policies and I want to see it. I don't know you. I don't know you. All politicians are dirtbags on some levels. They all do say one thing and do another. I'm not going to trust you. I want to see. I'm very comfortable as trust me. No, I'm not going to trust you. I want to see the information so I can then know that what you're saying is the truth. I'm not going to trust you. I'm not going to trust any of you, but I'm not going to trust you, Mr. Luxon, who for some reason is steadfast refusing to release the data, which makes you very confident, but doesn't give us any information.
$1 million from the foreign buyers, and we're going to give it to lower middle income New Zealanders.
Competence is not competence, Christopher, and that is what looks to be lacking here.
I disagree.
So you think competence is competence?
No, I'm confident and competent. I understand the economy, I understand numbers, and I understand how it works.
Why?
Well, actually,
there will be a range of economists that have a different range of opinions.
Well, actually,
we've had a range of economists in New Zealand, just for example, that didn't actually forecast that we'd be in recession.
Christopher, there are not a range of opinions on this. There are tax experts, economists, property experts who all say that these numbers are bogus.
Oh, shit.
And there's you and Castalia who say they're not.
And so within the Economist...
That is not a range of opinions. That is everyone else and you.
Well, there you go. Now, here's a little clip for everybody. If you didn't see Friday night's show, we had a bit of a special. The questions that are getting asked in here are around why are you not showing us the numbers? Economist Sam Warburton is a left-wing economist true, but he did a report with a right-wing economist, Michael Riddell, and they released it last week as to the massive hole in this plan. I asked Sam Warburton why he thought, and we can't know for sure, but why he thought the likely scenario was that National would not release their numbers. This is what he said. Do you have any perspective on why you think National won't release their full modelling? I know they don't have to release it, but it seems all the questions and queries that are out there at the moment could possibly be solved if they did release it. And if they're so confident in their numbers, do you have any inkling as to why they just ardently refuse to release that modelling?
Yeah, there's a couple of possibilities. The first is that the media was putting a lot of pressure on National to release its tax
so they
policy.
rushed it.
And you can imagine that, inside the National Party, someone would have said, okay, we need to set a deadline. Like, this is the drop dead date for getting something out. And the analysis, while the method is pretty straightforward, it was tricky to put everything together. It was really, really tricky. It took a lot of hours in our weekends and evenings to get this done. And so you can imagine, like what we experienced, we got to a point of exhaustion. And if you had a deadline, you would have been quickly running out of time. And so it's quite possible that we see what's quite a good method in there, that they might have got to the point of exhausting that good method and then getting to the point where you're getting into a little bit more speculative assumptions, and just doing a guesstimate and having that guesstimate be way wrong. And so, you don't want to be releasing documents that show you're doing a pretty decent job for part of it and then just completely stuffing it up with one big wrong number in there.
So you're saying, for clarity, you're saying that there's a chance that they don't want to release their modelling because they realise they've fudged a few things in their modelling.
Yeah. They took a stab. It might have even been an honest stab. But then the other possibility is, they did the modelling and then they saw the revenue results and they saw it was way less than what they needed.
I think that'll do us. We get the gist. And I've just realised I'm wearing exactly the same clothes. I'm a dirty, filthy mongrel. That's why I was trying to copy myself.
If anyone had on their normal bingo cards that I told everybody about but didn't include Pat in, that's Patception. It happens every now and then. It's the same Pat but from the past. Patception.
So basically they fudged their numbers because they had to rush something out, or they're lying. That was his opinion. I've obviously paraphrased, but that was his opinion as to why they won't release their numbers, Chewy. Now, we've got another 5 or 6 clips to go. The rest of the clips are only like 40 to 70 seconds, so we can whip through them, but I do want to show as many as we can. What are your thoughts?
I'm still furious. This is the party of the economy and the party of numbers. They can't seem to get single fucking one right.
Another great question. The conversation went on. What impact does National think that, removing the bright line and giving interest free for whatever they're called, landlords will do on house prices? What modelling have they done and what impact will it have? That was the next part of the conversation these guys had.
What impact will reducing the bright line test, interest deductibility and pouring 6,800 foreign buyers into the housing market have on residential prices?
Well, what I'd say to you, the real issue that drives residential prices is a lack of supply.
I'm asking you what effect your policies will have.
I don't think that'll have any particular effect on
pricing.
Do you
know?
I'd say to you,
no
let me explain why.
Because your finance minister doesn't know.
No, but let me explain to you why. Because essentially you've got to understand the housing market in New Zealand, right?
People do understand the housing market, but I'm asking what impact your policies will have on it.
Yeah, so let me explain that to you. What we're saying is we have major problems in the home ownership part of our market, right? We don't have enough supply of houses. We've got good policies about housing for growth, about how we unlock that. We have a major lack of supply in our rental property market as well. And we have a major lack of supply in social housing and state housing. So lack of supply is the single biggest determinant that will determine what happens with house prices going forward in New Zealand.
There we go. That's that part of the conversation. Now, I thought what was really interesting to show as well. You are. And this is also interesting. So they were like asking what impact would it had. This is from the debate on Thursday night. In Queenstown ASB Great Debate, the crowd of 400 got the fireworks of insults and one-liners they'd come for. The biggest revelation of the night, according to Newsroom, came when moderator TVNZ's Jack Tame asked Nicola Willis what reversing interest deductibility rules and reducing the bright line test to 2 years would do to the house prices. I don't know what it would do to house prices, Willis told the crowd, some of whom were startled by the blunt nature of her answer. She doesn't know, he doesn't know, because on some level, they're doing this on the fly, Chewy.
That's the presumptive finance minister, if we can believe the polls. Absolutely having no idea what one of the biggest drivers of our economy, messing around with that, what that will do.
Yeah,
she doesn't understand that removing the bright line test will turn houses into assets to flip for profit once again.
Yep, absolutely.
People buy old houses, do them up, increase the value. They're not like the bright line only affects people that are selling their homes quickly in less than 2 years. That's enough time to do up a house and flip it.
Yeah.
It exclude, like, if they're talking about supply being our biggest issue, why is there not a policy that encourages people to do new builds? Why is there not a policy opening up inner city areas for higher density? Why aren't we looking at that rather than pouring 6,500 uber wealthy people into the country? They're not building houses; they're going to buy something off the shelf.
Something I sent out today, and I think I'm going to address it in a later clip on Twitter, is that they're saying 6,500 buyers. Who says? Who says it's not going to be 20,000? Because at no point have I read in any of their documents there is a minimum number of houses they can buy, and there is a maximum number of buyers that can come into the country. He said there's 100,000 houses in New Zealand at the moment worth over $2 million. I'm being silly here, but what if every one of them was bought by an international buyer? There's nothing to say that an international buyer can't come in and buy 30 houses. There's nothing to say that in their bill, in their policy. There's nothing to say that they can't come in and they can't bank a property house, or, buy all those 3-bedroom houses in Auckland or in Queenstown or whatever that are basically just family houses as rentals, build up a literal land bank of properties, rent them all out, let them go for it, then come and retire to New Zealand in 20 years' time in their $20 million house, owning 40, 50, 60 rental properties that New Zealanders then can't buy. Now, on that, this is my segue. This is exactly the conversation that they then get into, talking a little bit about, flip it back over, New Zealand buyers now having to compete with international buyers. Let's have a listen.
What I've said to you is every aspect of our tax plan has been checked, and there are revenue raises in other areas. There are also prioritised savings.
That was the wrong clip. I did a big setup to. And it was the wrong clip.
That's a good segue.
It was a good bloody segue. There it is, 11:48. Blah, 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 competing with international buyers.
But a $2 million house here in Auckland, that's a 3-bedroom house in Mount Albert. And families, these are aspirational homes for Kiwis, and you want to pour foreign buyers into that part of the market. And what you're trying to tell me is that it's not going to push up prices or price out Kiwis.
We have 100,000 homes in New Zealand worth more than $2 million.
Something else that's never said is there might be 100,000 homes worth more than $2 million, but how many are on the market at any one time? Because it's not about having 100,000 homes, it's about how many are on the market that are then going to be competed for.
Example in Mount Albert.
1,600 homes is what we're talking about to make our plan work.
But you're pouring it into a part of the market that is aspirational and important to Kiwi families.
And what's important to Kiwi families, they also get tax relief because they're doing it incredibly tough with rising mortgage rates, high level of expenditure.
But you could be robbing from people to pay Paul here because you're going to give them $25 a week in tax relief and price them out of the housing market.
No, I'm actually taking it from Pedro to pay Paul because I'm taking it from foreign buyers. And I'm saying if you want to purchase a house here in New Zealand, you will pay a 15% tax. And that money is going straight to hardworking Kiwis who deserve a tax break.
I'm saying that you might be giving Kiwi families $25 a week, but you're taking away their ability to move into those homes at the $2 million mark, which here in Auckland is a family home.
Yeah, and I think when you've got 100,000 houses across the whole of this country with more
but how many are for sale at any one time?
Than $2 million, and we're talking about selling 1,600 of them potentially to foreigners. Actually,
every
that's
year
quite digestible.
For 4 years.
Yeah.
So that is many more than 1,600.
That's 1,600 times 4, to be quite precise. It's actually 1,725 times 4. I don't know why they keep saying now. See, they've just sold this narrative all of a sudden at 1,600. I don't know why that's better than 1,725, but that's what it is. Right. So, yes, I've done the preamble to that, was my rant afterwards, is the idea of getting priced out of the marketplace. And that will happen. And as lots of people have already said, 1.8 million dollar houses, 1.9 million dollar houses, people are just going to go, well, let's make them 2.1, because then that makes them accessible to international buyers. And I might get a couple of $100,000 more. 1.7 might get pushed up to 2. Let's see if we can get some international buyers. And you know what? If you've got a house sitting at $2 million, you're not going to budge, because all of a sudden your pool of buyers goes from, the 20 New Zealanders looking at it to the 20 New Zealanders and the 200 internationals as you're looking at it. I've got a tweet, and I didn't bring it up actually. I could go and find it. I've got a tweet from someone today that says they know someone in Bailey's, and they're getting information from China that Chinese residents are already sending money to New Zealand to start to get it ready to buy once National gets in. Like rumor, conjecture, don't know if it's true, can't claim it 100%. But it was a tweet that came out today, and I thought that's a particularly interesting thought. So Chewy, I think we'll leave it on this one more, because this is a really good challenge, right? Because we base our information on evidence, yeah? Rachel and Mr. Luxon talk about the tax in Toronto. Now, she gets it a bit wrong, but I'll explain it to you, because other places in the world do this, right? I'll play what they say first, and then I'll give you all the information which is actually worse than what they say, because I don't know if she misquotes or she didn't quite know, but we'll pan it out for you. So let's have a look now. When Luxon goes on to say every part of our tax has been checked, and she goes on to talk about examples from around the world, and this is the next clip.
Where does the money come from?
Well, what I've said to you is every aspect of our tax plan has been checked, and there are revenue raises in other areas. There are also prioritised savings in government spending. And every single aspect of that has been done conservatively, prudently,
but these are just words.
And responsibly.
These are just words without actual evidence, facts to back it up. These are just words. This is marketing. This is hubris.
No,
until you get elected.
I disagree. We've actually, I've explained to you that we've actually gone off and engaged somebody to actually interrogate our numbers, challenge our numbers.
But why aren't you worried then that everybody else says this is not going to work?
Yeah.
They looked at Toronto.
Yep.
In Toronto, which has the same 15% tax and a greater population than New Zealand, they came up with $250 million in this foreign buyer revenue.
Yes, well, we see these schemes working all around the world.
Working.
New South Wales.
Okay, so she just gave numbers that said in a bigger market they got a third the money. And Luxon's response is, we see these working other places in the world.
Says this is not going to work. They looked at Toronto. In Toronto, which has the same 15% tax and a greater population than New Zealand, they came up with $250 million in this foreign buyer revenue.
Yes, well, we see these schemes working all around the world.
But that's not $750 million.
What's happening across Australia?
Did you look at Toronto?
We've looked at a number of markets across the world, and we see these things working incredibly well.
Okay, so let me just clear this all up. It's actually not the Toronto model. It does happen in Toronto, but it happens across all Ontario, which Toronto I think is the largest city from. So it's actually called the Non-Residential Speculation Tax Collected, or the NT, whatever it is, whatever that acronym is. And there's 15 million people in Ontario that come under this. So 3 times the population of New Zealand. 15 million people.
3 times the money, right?
Well, it's actually not quite that, Chewy, but it's not 15%. It's actually 20%. And it's on all homes. And a year ago, it was raised to 25%. So there's more people with more houses and a higher tax, right? So it's not quite like for like. They should be getting more. So in 2017, this goes from 2017 to 2022. These are all the numbers here. They raised between 156 million, and the biggest year they had was 200 million, 200.3 million, the Ontario total. So that's 15 million people with 20, that's the year would have been 20% on all properties made $200 million. And Luxon's response to that is, well, we see this working all over the world, Chewy.
That's heaps less numbers. That's loads less. And this is what I mean. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're supporting. everyone should be angry with this.
Yeah.
Like, I see so many, like our little national cheerleader in the chat, that's just like, hey, yay team. No, they're playing you for fucking sucker because it's not about you. They don't give a shit about you. Unless you're donating to them, unless you're one of these rich overseas guys that's lining up to pay the kickback and buy his bolt hole here, they don't give a shit about you.
Not a shit.
They're going to fuck off so many more people with these policies than we even know at this point.
And remember, as our economist said, the reason they won't show their workings, in his opinion, who's just done the numbers, is they either fudge the numbers to get a result out quickly, or they're lying. He didn't use the word lying, it's my paraphrase, but they either fudge their numbers or they're straight up lying about their numbers. And if you look at a place like Ontario, 3 times the population, which means not just 3 times the house availabilities, because it's all houses. It's not just houses over $2 million. It's all houses. So that might be 10 times the houses available. Who knows? And they raised $200 million last year. And Luxon seems to think in New Zealand, right? What did I say? 5 times the size, 15 million. So 3 times. So 3 times smaller on what they describe as luxury houses. They're going to raise nearly 4 times as much money in tax, when the interest that they're being charged, 15%, is actually less than what they charge in Ontario as well. It's like, come on. I mean, just let's just say now that National can say anything they want and still lead the polls. That's just what we're looking at now, is just the complete anti-left vote, no matter what. Because you can't look at this conversation and go, I believe Luxon. There is no one who would see these numbers and go, I believe National. You might do it out of irony, you might do it out of spite towards the left, but there's no one who's going to go, yes, we trust you and your numbers, unless you have some kind of mental disability from a motorbike accident. That'd be about the only way.